What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage, and as you saw in the last video, we found out that the fuel pump wasn't dead. It just actually blew a line off. And that led me to wonder, hey, is there a specific reason why this is happening? Are we commanding too much duty cycle to the aftermarket pump? You see, this is a pulse width modulation system. That means it is a returnless fuel style. So you have one line that goes up and that's it, as opposed to normally a line that goes up, goes through the rails, hits a regulator, and then any excess comes back. Well, this one actually slows and speeds the pump up to meet a specific demand. And then there's an actual table, if you go in and look at your log, that's going to be pressure versus injector flow rate, that will say, okay, here's how much duty cycle we should be running the pump at to try and achieve this goal. Now, it does some calculations on top of that, some P&ID loops to try and bring it in, but I've tried this out this morning and found out that, yeah, man, it was getting like 30% off plus or minus. So I thought we could probably use an error histogram to try and solve this. Now, granted, this is a very, use case specific kind of video where we talk about using an aftermarket pump, in this case, an Aeromotive Stealth 340 liters per hour pump in a factory application. But a lot of people just cut straight to the point of going, hey, we're going to throw in a aftermarket pump, so we're going to make it a return style. But stick around, maybe we don't need to do that. Everybody, welcome back to the garage. As always, if you have not hit that subscribe button, hit it down there. The worst thing that you can do is learn some tuning tips, tricks, or just how to tune in general. And for everybody out there that's already subscribed and liked the videos, I appreciate your support as always. So as I was saying, a factory setup on these later generation models uses a returnless system that has a fuel pump control module that dictates a pulse width modulation that goes to your pump to speed it up and slow it down. Think of the boost-to-pump mentality, but instead of actually exceeding the 12.5 volts that we normally run to generate more flow, we have the option of running, maybe down to 5 volts up to 16 volts. The fuel pressure control module acts like a booster pump, and in fact you can exceed 100% duty cycle on this stuff, which I'm not sure if that's just set at what they're considering the 12.4, 12.5 volts. Anything above that is 100% duty cycle. But what I have found out is that you can use an aftermarket pump, one that supports it. Now, the Aeromotive Stealth is a great example. They do not come directly out and say that, yes, this is a replacement for the stock pump, because it requires tuning to get right. And I have a sneaking suspicion that this is why I blew that hose off the pump on the outlet of the pump, is because I was probably commanding too much flow or pressure at the top end than actually needed to feed the high pressure fuel pump. So I have set up a histogram that we will go into and how it applies to the base duty cycle fuel pump tables. But in order to do that, I'm going to go out, get a log real quick. I'm not going to make you suffer through that. I'll bring you guys back into the truck and pull the screen up, show you what's going on and how we're applying the changes, and we'll see whether or not we can actually get this error out, because I tested this out on a Patreon only video earlier today, and it was, as said, up to 50 or 60% swing positive to minus. So about 25 to 30% error off of desired. And literally we are logging desired fuel pressure versus delivered. And then we are basing it off of a fuel pressure and then fuel flow. And the fuel flow is calculated, so that might not be the most accurate, but it should be close enough to get this table dialed in. We'll see. Okay, what we've got here is the chart that's been set up. And as you can see, there is a demarcation line right down the middle that's going to be probably about 47 PSI. In fact, it's going to be 46 because that's our goal. And you see, as we get higher or lower, it is reading more error. That's to be expected. But the idea is if we get the duty cycles around that area dialed in properly, it won't drift as far out and the error won't be as bad, at least in theory. Now, whether or not that's going to prove to be true, we're about to find out. So, like anything, we're going to do half steps. So we'll go ahead and stop scanning now. We're going to copy this over, and you can look at what's going on here. Just standard setup. If we look at the map that we're using, it's underneath our fuel system, underneath our fuel pump, and we have a base duty cycle. These are percentages of duty cycle. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that aligns out to, but we will find out if need be. But for now, we know that we need to shift these to match kind of the error between the commanded and the actual. So we have a requested, which is the commanded pressure, and then we have an actual pressure that reads in. We're using a math parameter that I set up to calculate that, and it is the standard math to generate a percentage of error, but using the fuel pressure and the fuel pressure requested. Then, as I said, we come in here, we develop a graph using that math, and then using the two parts of the actual table, which is fuel pressure by fuel flow. Well, the only fuel flow that we have is, we've got two fuel flow estimates. We've got an instantaneous and an advanced fuel flow estimate. I figured instantaneous was closer to what we actually would want to use. So let's copy this over. We're going to come in here, we're going to highlight it, paste special, multiply by percentage half. We'll go ahead and save this as the next step. As you can see, this will be number 3. Flash it in, and we will see how our error looks. Right now, where we're switching over, we've got a 6, 5% negative, 7 to 8 positive. So the question will be whether or not that gets narrower. Check out my awesome clock that somebody made me. Is that dope or what? Man, thanks Scott, appreciate it. Okay, so I kind of cut the data logging portion off a little bit short. Let me explain to you why. It was not working. And it makes some sense as to why it was not working. We're making changes, but in the background, there is basically a closed loop and open loop section to the low pressure fuel pump. And we run in closed loop. We do not have any way of disabling closed loop on the low pressure fuel pump, which is really weird because we can for the high pressure fuel pump apparently. So if anybody from HP Tuners watches this, maybe check out a way on the Gen 5s, and maybe it's just on the Silverados because we can't really get into the fuel pressure control module like you can on some of the other vehicles. Maybe give us a way of disabling the low pressure closed loop stuff. That way we can make changes. So any changes that we were making were being made to the open loop, which is what it goes into if your fuel pressure sender fails. But the thing about it is, we can fail the fuel pressure sender most likely, but we need that so we can log the error. So it doesn't even work that way, because I thought about doing that also. The only other way that I could think of, and I don't even know if it would work, is if we were to fail the factory fuel pressure sensor, install an aftermarket sensor, bring it in on an analog channel of the MPVI, and use it that way. If anybody out there has EFI Live, let me know if you have access to a way of disabling closed loop for the low pressure fuel pump. It would also be nice, once again, HP Tuners, if any of you guys are watching this or listening, to be able to change the fuel scaling for the level on these things. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Given my setup here, I would love to be able to adjust that, and I know other platforms in the GM lineup have that ability. Why do we not have that ability on our on this ECM? So, but yeah, this was a failure. Normally, as said, I wouldn't even post this up, but I threw a poll up there. A couple of you seem interested in seeing me fail. Nothing wrong with that. Happens all the time, more than you would probably ever know. But I wanted to go ahead. I've already shot the rest of the video. Might as well throw it all together. Show you kind of the process of figuring out something new, trying something new, and then finding out whether or not it works. And sometimes it doesn't. That being said, yeah, we still got to get back to doing the throttle body. I need to get that thing dialed in. It is very, very sketchy right now. That thing, you got to be very careful, because you give a little bit of pedal and man, it wants to take off whenever it gets over that initial break point. So I've got to tune that thing down a little bit. So, but other than that, there's going to be some cool content coming out next week. I'm going to be tearing this wall over here, that wall out probably next week, and there's an office behind that has never been used for anything besides storage, and I'm going to move a lot of this crap into that area and make that kind of a workshop tool area, so I have a more clear and open spot out here. So I might throw some videos up on me tearing the wall down and stuff just for fun. But other than that, you know, ABT, always be tuning. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for stopping by. If you have any suggestions or questions on what I was trying to do in this video, hit the comments up down below. Man, I drew a blank there for a second. Must be getting old. Okay, let's wrap this up and call it a day. I've got beer to be drank back there behind that door where the beer fridge is.